Saki mbwembwana kwele mchele kwa kuku kumwaga. Sako na wapenda yatusema nitasikia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Owen, and I am a second year at Northwestern University studying biological sciences and theater. And I'm here to give you all an introduction to biochemistry. So one of the central goals of biochemistry is to understand life at the molecular level and how that extends to our understanding of life at the organismal level. So in the pursuit of this goal, scientists have found that organisms are remarkably uniform at the molecular level. So, for instance, the chemical interactions going on within this E. coli cell are very equivalent to the chemical interactions going on within many of the cells within this huge elephant. Now, this phenomenon illustrates the unity of life. All of life has the same chemical interactions underpinning its existence. And this is most likely because of a common ancestor between all of life, the very first living organism. So now we can ask the question, why is life composed of the elements that it's composed of? What makes them so special? So there are 90 naturally occurring elements, but only 3 of them, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, make up 98% of the composition of all of life. Now, the hydrogen and oxygen come from the abundance of water on this planet, and water is so important, is so integral to life as we know it, that any absence of water indicates that there is no life present there. So that's why, for instance, recently a lot of space expeditions have been trying to find if water is on Mars or if it has ever existed on Mars, in the hopes of perhaps finding new life beyond Earth. So that explains why the high composition of hydrogen and oxygen molecules. But why carbon? Why carbon molecules? So in answering this question, let's compare it to its closest chemical relative, silicon. So silicon is much more plentiful than carbon in the Earth's crust, as seen in this table here. And like carbon, it can form 4 covalent bonds, a property that's crucial to the construction of large molecules. However, carbon-to-carbon bonds are stronger than silicon-to-silicon bonds. So this difference in bond strength has 2 important consequences. So first, large molecules can be built with the use of carbon-carbon bonds as a backbone because of the stability of these bonds. And second, more energy is released from these carbon-carbon bonds when they undergo combustion. In this sense, carbon-based molecules are stronger construction materials as well as better fuels than silicon-based molecules. So in understanding why so much of life is composed of these elements, we can take a look at the 4 major classes of biomolecules: proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates. So the first one we'll be looking at is proteins, and these can be seen as the machines of the cell. They are by far the most diverse in structure, and then therefore the most diverse in function. So much of the study of biochemistry revolves around proteins and their functions. So proteins are linear molecules constructed of 20 basic building blocks called amino acids. So you can think of amino acids as analogous to the alphabet. So in the English alphabet, there are 26 different letters. Now these 26 different letters can be combined to form an unimaginable amount of content, such as like millions of books, speeches. It's literally how we communicate, and we use this language every single day. Now, in the same sense, these 20 amino acids can be different combinations of them can result in vastly different structural proteins. Each amino acid has its own specific chemical properties. And these chemical properties interact with the rest of the amino acids of the molecule, as well as the rest of the environment, resulting in all this different pushing and pulling within the molecule, resulting in folding of the actual protein that can then perform a very specific function. Now, some of these functions include signal and receptor molecules, structural support molecules, and then perhaps most importantly, they serve as catalysts for other chemical reactions. Now, catalysts are agents that enhance the rate of a chemical reaction without being permanently affected themselves. And these protein catalysts are called enzymes. And nearly every single process that takes place within living systems depends on enzymes to increase the rate of these reactions to produce a specific amount of chemical products that in turn either structure the cell or power the cell with energy. Now, the second basic biomolecule our basic biomolecules are nucleic acids. Now, these comprise our DNA, and then they also are part of the energetic currency, so to say, ATP molecules that provide all the molecules, all of these enzymes, all of these usually unfavorable chemical reactions with energy to allow them to be favorable. Now, however, the main function of these nucleic acids is in DNA, in encoding the instructions of all cellular functions and interactions. So, like proteins, nucleic acids are linear molecules. However, nucleic acids are constructed from only 4 building blocks called nucleotides. Now, these basic nucleotides are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, or A, C, G, and T. And they comprise all of the genetic code that makes us who we are, that differentiates all of the different cells. So at the most basic point, at its conception, the only difference between different cells are their genetic codes. And then those genetic codes then entail greater differences, either structurally or functionally, in all of these different cells. So that illustrates the importance of nucleic acids to biological life. So our third biological molecule is lipids. So lipids serve as fuel storage as well as membranes, and so they are much smaller than proteins, as well as nucleic acids. Their typical molecular weight is around 1,300 grams per moles, whereas for proteins and nucleic acids, they can have molecular weights in the thousands and millions. So moreover, lipids are not polymers of repeating units as proteins and nucleic acids. So they don't have necessarily an alphabet. There is no basic building block that comprises their formation. Now, a key characteristic of these biochemically important lipids is their dual chemical nature. So part of the molecule is hydrophilic, which when translated from Latin literally means loving water. So that means it's going to have favorable interactions with water. Now, the other part of the molecule is hydrophobic, which means it will not have favorable interactions with water and won't react with water at all. Now, the result of this phenomenon is these structures, these molecules, when put into think of it as like a bucket of water, they will form these bilayer membranes, where the hydrophobic parts will cluster together so as to not interact with the water. Meanwhile, the hydrophilic parts will surround the outside of that bilayer because they do want to interact with water. And the result of this is the formation of the membranes that enclose our cell. Each cell is suspended in water, and these membranes are what separate the inside of the cell from the outside of the cell. Now, there are also important forms of storage, or they are important storage of energy, of carbon fuels. These hydrophobic tails are comprised of many carbon molecules, which can then be metabolized into essentially free energy, providing energy for the cell. Now, in a similar sense, carbohydrates, the last of the four main biological molecules, they serve the exact same function. They serve as fast-acting fuel for chemical processes. So they can be quickly metabolized, much more quickly than lipids can be. And in this sense, they provide quick, easy access energy to all of the processes that power the cell. So I hope you all learned a good bit about the four basic building blocks that comprise life and life overall at the molecular level. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Nanipaga moyo nikianza kulia chozi nafutia.